I'm James Naughtie, and I've published the new Elizabethans, which consists really of the script of 60 portraits, which I broadcast on Radio 4, of people who had somehow left their tracks on our era in the 6 decades of the Queen's reign. Diamond Jubilees are a nice excuse in the Olympics year to draw a line, to write a frame round our era. And the idea is to present people in the arts, in sciences, in public affairs and politics, who, for good or ill, have left their marks on our landscape, and who somehow changed our lives or influenced us. And of course, one of the great things for Radio 4 listeners was who'll be in and who'll be out. But it's, I hope, a portrait of the age. The point of the Elizabethan age isn't the Queen herself as a person, and I'm sure she would be the first person to sort of agree with that. It's that somehow she represents, whether she likes it or not, a period which has been one of continuity, which she represents, and fantastic change, which in a way the country, represented by her, has had to overcome. And what we do in these portraits is to go from Edmund Hillary, whose ascent of Everest was announced on the very day of the coronation, right through to herself, as it happens, the last one. But in the last 5 portraits, broadcast in the last week of the series, were Tony Blair, Rupert Murdoch, Simon Cowell, Fred Goodwin and the Queen. Well, you can't get a more eclectic mix, but what they catch is that period of the first decade of the 21st century. And what we've tried to do is to say these are the folk who have told their story, who've written the soundtrack of our era, whether it's the Beatles or David Hockney or Tony Hancock in the 50s and 60s, or Billy Connolly, or Margaret Thatcher, obviously, Enoch Powell, Roy Jenkins, whether it's scientists, you know, who discovered DNA, who discovered the first pulsar. They're all there in the home movie of our time. You know, I admire a lot of these people. Some of them I watched, you know, some of them I vaguely knew or know. I think what I found about it was a tremendous resurgence of, I don't know, just excitement and a feeling of an age that moves and changes. You know, when I tell the story in the book about missing a Beatles concert when I was 12 because the snows came down and they didn't turn up. And it was the month before they recorded Please Please Me in one day, after which, you know, they weren't asking people to come to their concerts, they were keeping them away. They were paid £42 to perform one night at the Elgin Folk Club in the January of 1963. So there's a wonderful sense for me of the era changing. The 60s, in which I was a teenager, the 70s with all its kind of industrial upheaval and political chaos, the Thatcher era, which I reported as a young journalist, the era of Blair and the preeminence of the city, then the crash. It's, to me, the roller coaster feel. But you know, the funny thing is that looking at history in this way, as a story of people, character, colour, people who can make a difference because they're determined, you get a sense of the enormous vitality that we've still got, and set against the sense that the post-war era was always going to be one of decline, which it has been, the end of empire, the relative decline in economic power vis-à-vis other countries and so on. It's wonderful to be reminded that this is still a country with fantastic resources of intellect, colour, imagination, bloody-mindedness and fun. And that's what this galère of people, who are a wonderful bunch, is meant to give you.
Are you proud to be British?
Oh, extremely proud to be British. I'm proud to be a Scot, I'm proud to be British, and you know, I've never found that a difficult thing to handle. I think this country, the UK, is a most extraordinary outfit. I mean, it's a bit, people often talk about the BBC, for which I mostly work, and the BBC could never have been invented at a different time. You know, if you started now to create a broadcasting organisation for any country, you wouldn't invent the BBC. No one would let you. But it was created in the 1920s, and it has done something absolutely remarkable. And I think the country's a bit like that. You know, no written constitution. How extraordinary! But we gave English to the world. We gave Shakespeare and various other people to the world, and we keep going. And I'm kind of, now getting into my, I suppose, what do you call it, the transition from middle age to whatever follows that. And I just think this progress for me from the early 50s, beginning 2 years after I was born, was one of the most exhilarating things I've ever done. And what I've tried to do, incidentally, is not to write it as a historian, which I'm not, but as an observer and as somebody who enjoys people and their foibles and their characteristics, and write it as an individual. It's my view, doesn't come to a conclusion. It's just my view, and it's a journey, but it's a fun journey. The pleasures of a good bookshop are comfort, warmth, and humanity. That's what books are. You should feel at home, you should have time to linger, and you should deal with people who care about books, who want to touch them and feel them, who know the difference between a nice-looking book that's been put together by its writer and publisher with care and one that hasn't. The tradition of the written word, just like the tradition of the oral story, is absolutely deeply embedded in us. And if bookshops don't celebrate that, it's the end of a little corner of civilization. I love a good bookshop. I can't stand a bad one.